So you want to stop smoking and need to know how to cope with cravings and the overpowering urge to smoke. Well, in this video series, we will be doing just that as you discover how to identify triggers, learn how to take action to avoid a craving, and how you can deal with those urges to smoke whenever and wherever they happen. Hi there, I'm Jackie Hill. Yes, that's me there on the left. As a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, I have over 15 plus years experience, over which time I've helped many people quit smoking, and today I can help you in your battle to overcome smoking cigarettes and tobacco products. In this 3-part video series, I will show you how you can identify and avoid triggers that cause you to smoke, how to deal with those intrusive and invasive thoughts of smoking, and how to conquer those uncontrollable urges to smoke, helping you to put smoking cigarettes and tobacco products right behind you forever. One of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem people face when trying to quit smoking, is the problem of cravings. Cravings can be described as an overwhelming urge to smoke. When experiencing a craving, you will be familiar with feeling out of control and an overriding need to smoke. When a craving occurs, it seems to take over. It's that urge of, I must have a cigarette now, and it just won't go away. These cravings can be incredibly intense, particularly when you first stop smoking, because they are aggravated by the physical withdrawal from nicotine. So when a craving hits, many people feel stressed, as it seems like the only option, the only relief from this torture is to give in to the urge and light up a cigarette. So to quit smoking successfully, it is so important for you to know how to deal with these cravings and urges to smoke. The first thing to recognise and accept is that quitting smoking is a process. It is not just something you decide one day and that's it. It doesn't come about as an overnight happening or a one-off event. Quitting smoking is an ongoing process, a process whereby you take each moment by moment, changing the way you think, your daily routine, and even your lifestyle. 1 hour at a time, a day at a time, until you reach the stage of never thinking about a cigarette at all. And within that process, you will undoubtedly experience cravings. So expect them. Cravings aren't normal. You will have them, for it is part of the process, the normal process of quitting smoking or any other addictive behaviour. So when you experience a craving, it is so important to remind yourself of this and accept that cravings are just part of the quitting process. And the second thing to remember in this is that the craving or urge to smoke, and this is where the good news comes in, will soon pass. They will only last a few moments. And if you follow my suggestions in this video series, you will find that over the time, the urge to smoke will gradually subside and cravings will become less frequent until you reach a point where you don't experience them at all. So cravings are often caused by reminders of smoking, and these are usually called triggers. Now these triggers can be our behaviour and actions, where we are and who we are with, specific situations and events and include our emotions and feelings. Even the words we use or hear the things or see things, we can trigger off a craving. For example, talking about smoking or seeing someone smoke are incredibly powerful triggers, and these triggers serve to remind you that it's time for you to smoke. They cue the thought in your mind that smoking is what you usually do when you face these situations, when you hear these words. It's part of your daily ritual where you have been doing over possibly many, many years. And it becomes such a part of your ritual that you don't even notice that it's there. So that's why it's so important, now that you've made a decision to stop smoking, to retrain your mind to learn a different ritual with a new set of healthier prompts. Now, in this video, I will show you how you can identify those triggers in your life that cause you to smoke. And if you can avoid or eliminate as many of these triggers whilst you are quitting, you are likely to experience less cravings. Sometimes there are triggers that you just can't avoid though, and you go ahead and experience a craving. Well, don't worry. The 2 follow-up videos I will show you how you can deal with a craving when that happens. Now remember, throughout this series, that cravings only last a few moments, and if you follow my suggestions in this video series, you will find the urge to smoke becomes less frequent and less powerful. If the craving does not go away, say after 10 minutes or so, then it is likely that you are still exposed to whatever it was that triggered it. So in today's video, you will explore what behaviour, people, places and feelings trigger you to smoke. For example, some people light up a cigarette when they feel stressed or bored, or when they go to a particular place or are with specific people. In which case, if the craving persists, then take action to remove that trigger. If you're feeling bored, concentrate your efforts on doing something, anything, to take your mind and attention off smoking. If you are with friends who are smoking, get away from them as soon as you can. Don't torture yourself. The act of escaping the trigger will help you to focus your mind on other things and reduce the power of the craving. Cravings then can be triggered by our behaviour, our responses to situations and circumstances, who we are with, our emotions and even our words. Sometimes just the mention of the word smoking or cigarette or seeing someone else smoke can trigger your craving. If you know what these triggers are, you can take action to avoid them. Now let's understand what's going on behind the craving. Well, there are 3 types of craving, and there are the physical cravings. Now these usually occur in the initial stages of quitting smoking, and they are usually caused by your body having got used to nicotine and expecting to have some. You will know when you are experiencing a physical craving because your body will have a physical reaction to the withdrawal. Now, the good news is that these symptoms are not usually intense, and that once the nicotine has got out of your system, and this usually takes around 4 to 7 days, they cease to occur. And then there are the habitual cravings. Now these cravings are triggered by specific behaviours that you've associated to smoking, such as, for example, always having a cigarette with a cup of coffee, or smoking after a meal. And then there are the psychological cravings. Now, this type of craving is linked to our reward system. That's the part that gives us pleasure. When you experience a psychological craving, this is because your brain believes that you will receive a benefit when you smoke, such as happiness or pleasure, and releases a chemical called dopamine. Now, this reaction that goes on in your mind creates a feeling of inner conflict, as on one level a part of you doesn't want to give in the urge to smoke, and the other part feels powerless to resist the craving. And it's this conflict that causes you to feel stressed. And as your body gets stressed, it releases stress hormones, which help make you feel even more unable to cope, and you feel that the only way to get relief is to succumb to the craving. So let's look back now on how you can deal with a craving. We now know that triggers cause cravings, so it's important then for you to find out all the things that trigger you to smoke and identify which ones are physical, that's relating to the body, habitual, that are relating to your daily smoking routine, and psychological, and that's the mental and emotional responses that you have to specific situations. So grab yourself a pen and at least 3 pieces of paper, and on the top of the first page list all the triggers that you think would cause a physical craving. Now, to help you do this, here are some of the common physical symptoms that people experience in those first few days of quitting smoking. So we have tingling of the hands and feet, excessive sweating, intestine disorders such as cramps, nausea, headaches, colds, sore throats, coughing, increased anxiety, and then we have nausea mentioned again here, feeling low or depressed, having trouble sleeping, feeling irritable, feeling grouchy, having trouble thinking clearly and concentrating, feeling restless and jumpy, a slower heart rate, and maybe feeling more hungry or gaining weight. So being aware of these symptoms, these of physical withdrawal, will help you recognise and accept them if they occur. It's just part of the quitting process. So remember that although they may be unpleasant and stressful, they are normal and only temporary. If you have to, if necessary, you can treat them as though you would any other physical symptom. Cravings will happen. It's because your body is going to notice the lack of nicotine and remind you that it's time to have a smoke. And remember that the good news is that on day 2 or day 3, as a non-smoker, the cravings will become less and less frequent and less annoying to you. In fact, most people find that after 4 to 7 days, they hardly even give a second thought to smoking. If the thought pops into your mind, you are already there with your standard answer later and can continue with what you're doing. Now, to help you wait out the urge to smoke, and remember this only lasts around 3 to 5 minutes, write down now a list of all the things that you can do during those few moments. And here are some ideas. You can get busy. You can start another activity. Maybe if you can't do that, you can think of something else. You can focus on what you're doing on your work or take a break. Go do some exercises, drink some water, chew some gum. You can eat something, perhaps some fruit. A good one is that you can get in the habit of breathing deeply several times, taking the breath right down into the gut area. You can do a relaxing exercise, you can go and brush your teeth, and you can tell yourself throughout this process that the symptoms will disappear in a few days. That's all it takes. Knowing that you're going to expect these cravings to happen, you can prepare for them in advance. You can treat yourself to something nice. You can go and have a relaxing bath or listen to a new music CD or take a trip to the local cinema or the spa. So write down now all the things that you could do to help you feel pampered and special. Remember that cravings are just part of the process of quitting. The physical need to smoke is just your body craving nicotine. It is only temporary and it will pass. Now let's look at the habitual cravings. Now you can identify these easily by breaking down each time you smoke and putting what happens in the following 5 categories. First of all, we're looking at location. Where are you? Note down where you are. Note down what time it is and how you feel. Maybe you're feeling bored, or maybe you're feeling impatient or angry. Note who you're with. And if there isn't anyone with you, who else is around? And then think back to what you was doing just before you had the craving. What happened? So get a fresh sheet of paper and have a go. Write down all the triggers linked to habits that you've associated with smoking. Most people form the habit, for example, of smoking after a meal or while drinking, or even as a reward after finishing a task. So let's look at this a bit closer, because paying good money to slowly kill yourself is not a reward. But you already know this. So now that you understand that this is just an automatic response from your subconscious mind, it's important to realize at the same time that you are not powerless. You have the power of choice. You can actively change your response to these decisions by challenging your thinking. For example, when you notice after having this thought to smoke, you can say to yourself, that is not my thought. What I want to think of instead is, and fill in the type of thought that you would rather have. Remember, at all times, you are not powerless. You have a choice. Having a smoke while you're drinking or after dinner is just a habit. Plenty of people manage to do these activities without this habit. So again, make yourself conscious of what you want and challenge any of those automatic thoughts from the old pattern of behaviour. It is really that easy. So now run through an average day in your mind. Think about when you smoke, who with, where you are, what time, and what you're doing while we smoke. Now here's some examples that you might do. You might wake up first thing in the morning, turn off the alarm and have a cigarette before you do anything else. Or you may have a cigarette after breakfast and then have another cigarette with coffee at 11. So go through your whole day and jot down the information on some paper. A good way to break away from a habit is to develop a new one, and your mind will be creating new links to that behaviour. And after a period of time, you will find that the new healthy habit has replaced the old one. So now think about how you can change the routine that you have and write that down on your paper. For example, when you find yourself instinctively reaching for a cigarette or fumbling for a lighter, get into the new habit of flexing your hand instead, and at the same time feel the freedom of not having to carry around cigarettes and lighter everywhere. Instead of having a cigarette every time you have a coffee, you could change the beverage or drink a glass of water instead. It's just for a while until that new habit has replaced that old one. Think about where you can change the routine, and you'll find that you're taking your first steps to breaking the habit of smoking. If you know that evenings are always worse for you, then plan ahead, for it's by changing your usual routine. If writing or reading is a trigger point, then if possible, avoid doing them for a while. Or if it's not possible to do so, plan to do it in a different environment where you cannot smoke. There are so many things that you can do to help yourself if you just take the time to sit down, look at your triggers, look at what causes them, and make some changes. Now we'll come to listing down all the psychological triggers. And we can start by making a list of all the things that you like about smoking. What does smoking give you? Here's a list of some common beliefs that smokers have. Smoking calms my nerves. Smoking relieves boredom. Helps me to concentrate. Gives me something to do with my hands. It's cool. Smoking punctuates my day. It helps me move from one task to another. These are all mistaken beliefs that you have over time developed about smoking, because none of them are true. Having a cigarette doesn't help you concentrate. You can always do something else with your hands, and smoking these days isn't cool at all. And I'm going to talk more about what you can do to disempower these embedded beliefs in video 3 of this series. But in the meantime, it's important for you to identify them and become aware of how they trick you to start smoking. So, as before, run through an average day in your mind and think about all the emotions and feelings that trigger you to smoke. Now here's some examples. Feeling anxious about something and your first reaction is to have a cigarette. Perhaps you're waiting for someone, you're feeling impatient or don't know what to do and you have time on your hands. Maybe you feel smoking helps you to concentrate. Just list down by going through your whole day and get the information down on your paper. Now, recall earlier that in this video I stated that psychological cravings are linked to rewards. Your subconscious mind persuades you to give in to the craving and have a cigarette so that you can receive the mistaken reward. In other words, you smoke because deep down you believe that smoking benefits you in some way. This is your belief. Increased hunger after quitting smoking also has psychological roots. So you can be prepared for that. If you know that that is one of the triggers that you have, you can prepare for it by keeping low-calorie, nutritious foods around until you adjust to life without cigarettes or tobacco. Perhaps you prefer to have some chewing gum or some sugar-free sweets or any mints or something to have around just to help you fight off the physical and psychological cravings. A good way to deal with these cravings is to replace the negative reward system with a positive one. For example, let's look at the mistaken reward that smoking calms you down, or that you feel more relaxed when you smoke. What you could do instead is to introduce a new reward that is not smoking related and that is healthy for you, such as, if you feel stressed, get in the habit of doing some deep breathing exercises and focus on how wonderful you feel when your lungs are free from tar. By reconditioning your smoking related thought processes, your psychological withdrawal will be less intense. So write down now a list of all the benefits you expect to receive by not smoking. And these can include benefits such as health benefits, relationship benefits, financial benefits, and so on. And keep this list handy and refer to it frequently so that you are creating a positive reward system for your brain to focus on. Remember, you are not giving up anything. Earlier in this video, I said that even words can trigger a craving. When you use words such as giving up, it implies a loss, when the reality is that you're gaining so much more. You're gaining health, energy, money, you're gaining self-control, self-confidence, you're gaining the self-respect that comes with creating your own reality and not being a slave to advertising or mass opinion. So stop now saying, I'm giving up smoking. Instead, remind yourself that you are gaining health or control. Above all, do not give in to the temptation to smoke. Most of the time, we tell ourselves, it's time for a smoke, or I'll just take a rest and have a smoke. But in reality, you are not really responding to a need to smoke, because smoking doesn't relax you. In fact, taking the time to take slow, deep breaths and allow your mind to mentally drift off from the task, they are the things that relax you. And you can do this without the smoking. Let's face it, billions of people already do. And if they can, so can you. So these lists should arm you with all the things that you can do to avoid triggering a craving. Remember, the more triggers you can remove, the less you will feel the urge to smoke. Do feel free to email me on jackie@fastforwardtherapies.co.uk with any questions that you may have, or write down your comments in the box below. And remember that in the next video, I will explain to you how you can deal with those intrusive thoughts that trigger a craving. These invasive thoughts seem to come from nowhere, and if they're not dealt with correctly, become more powerful and spiral you out of control. So often, it's these thoughts that are the cause of sabotaging your intention to quit smoking. So make sure that you don't miss video 2 in this series. And you can do that by entering your email address. You'll find the space immediately beneath this video, and you should be with you in the next day or so. So in the meantime, identify those triggers, and until the next video, take care. I look forward to hearing from you. Jackie Hill.